If you hate to see your phone's screen getting damaged, well, then take precautions. Buy a good tempered glass like the one from our sponsor, Glazed Ink. What's special about Glazed Ink glass is that it has 2.5D curved glass along the edges, so it covers the entire screen, leaving absolutely no gap. You won't see awkward gaps like this, which you might get from installing any other tempered glass in the market. They have tempered glasses for a lot of other phones as well, including the Poco X2 and the Galaxy A51. So do check out Glazed Ink, link in the description. You can use the promo code TJOB to get a 10% discount. A periscope camera on a phone under 30,000 rupees. That definitely brought a lot of interest towards the Realme X3 Super Zoom, but trust me, that's not just the only thing. It's actually got quite a versatile setup. You know, on the front, there's a secondary ultra-wide-angle camera, and on the rear, like I said, there is a periscope camera for optical zoom. It's 8 megapixels. There is also an 8 megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera, a 64 megapixel main camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. So on paper, everything looks fantastic except for the macro camera. Anyway, let's now find out how it fares in real-world usage. When the lighting is good, you can hardly notice any major flaw in these pictures shot using the main 64 megapixel unit. It's pretty much picture perfect in most cases. I'm sure you remember how I used to crib about Realme oversaturating the colors beyond acceptable levels, but thankfully they fixed it recently. Even now the greens tend to look slightly oversaturated, but it doesn't look bad in any way. The color reproduction is really good overall. The images are quite sharp even in the default 16 megapixel mode. The dynamic range is also quite impressive even when you use the ultra-wide-angle camera. It introduces additional contrast to the scene, which makes the image pop with punchy and vivid colors. They are also quite sharp, but in some challenging conditions, they turn out a bit soft, as you can see here. This happens only while using the ultra-wide camera. And of course, there is the periscope camera, which can click 5x zoomed in images. Like, you can go from 1x to 2x, but that's just digital zoom. And then when you tap 5x, that's when the periscope camera takes control. And let me tell you, this is by far the best zooming system I've seen on a phone under 30 or 35,000 rupees. Look at how sharp it is. Of course, Realme keeps marketing this as 60x zoom, but guys, it looks awful. At 10x, it looks quite decent. At 15x, okay. But look at this. This is 30x and this is 60x. The camera is meant for 5x zoom, and at that setting, it performs brilliantly. Surprisingly, performs quite well indoors too. As you can see, this is shot using the main camera. If I crop in, you can see that it's quite soft. But at 5x zoom, the periscope camera takes control and gets a much better shot. Look at the speaker grill. The tiny holes are clearly visible. It's also better than using the 64 megapixel mode and then cropping in. Here's a comparison. The periscope shot is much cleaner and sharper. But of course, you only get the zoomed in frame. In some cases, you might want to capture a regular wide image, and later you might want to pinch to zoom for whatever reason. So for that, the 64 megapixel mode is the right choice. That's the use case for it. Now, one drawback is that the periscope camera cannot click close-up shots. But like I mentioned earlier, you do have a dedicated 2 megapixel camera for macro photography. It can go reasonably close to the subject, but not as close as some other phones with macro cameras can. The quality is of course not great, 2 megapixels, what can you expect? Now, selfies are quite impressive. Great, vibrant colors with good skin tones and good dynamic range. The 8 megapixel ultra-wide selfies look good too. Just like we saw with the rear setup, the ultra-wide camera here goes for a more contrasty look, deeper blacks and brighter whites. In low light, the selfie cameras struggle quite a bit, but that's expected. There is a night mode, but it doesn't help much. However, when it comes to rear camera images, it's a completely different story. As it is, the camera captures good images under low light, but the dedicated night mode improves the contrast and, more importantly, reduces the noise to a great extent. Here, look at the improvement in sharpness and the texture of the road. Same goes to ultra-wide-angle camera. The night mode vastly improves the quality. It's much brighter and cleaner. Still doesn't look great, to be honest, but that's the case with most other phones as well. Here's one from the OnePlus 7T. One issue with night mode is that sometimes it's not able to focus on the subject. When you switch back to the normal photo mode, it works, but in night mode, despite tapping to focus multiple times, it doesn't work. This mostly happens for close subjects. Another thing, when you zoom in 5x, it still switches to the periscope camera despite its inability to click decent pictures under low light. It is a well-known fact that telephoto cameras on today's smartphones struggle under low light. That's why phones use main camera's digital zoom instead of telephoto camera / optical zoom. Night mode makes it a little better, but still using the main camera and cropping in later looks better. Here's a comparison. So keep this in mind. If you want to zoom in at night time, don't actually use the zoom function. Just click a picture at 1x and then crop the image. By the way, there are a few more options in night mode to get even better results. First thing, this night mode we've been using is the AI Nightscape. That's the default night mode. You can tap this toggle to switch to Pro mode, basically a manual mode with access to shutter speed, ISO, etc. Guys, if you don't understand those terms, you know what to do. Watch this video. You'll become a pro in a matter of minutes. I guarantee you. So usually at anything over 1 second, you need a tripod. But in this case, even at 2 or 3 seconds, you can capture a handheld photo. It does take much longer than 2 or 3 seconds. It takes much longer than the actual shutter speed time for matching frames, stitching, blur reduction, and so on. So the result you get is a lot brighter than the regular Nightscape shot. But the problem is it's not perfectly sharp. However, if you make sure the phone is super stable by using a tripod or having it lean against something, you can get an image that's both bright and super sharp. Here is a side-by-side comparison of a tripod and no tripod shot. Now, if you have a tripod, but for some reason if you don't know how to use the Pro mode, if you cannot get the settings right, don't worry at all. There is a dedicated tripod mode over here, so you can use that instead. The results are very similar. And yeah, that's an aircraft. Looks so cool on a long exposure image, right? Realme has also included something called Starry Mode, which is meant to capture the stars. I'm really sorry I couldn't test it out because you can barely spot stars from a city due to this thing called light pollution. You need to go at least 50 kilometers away from the city to be able to spot the stars, and I cannot really do that now thanks to complete lockdown. If you use the Starry mode inside a city, this is what you'll get. One thing worth mentioning is that while capturing an image in this mode, there is a stop button, but it doesn't work. So you'll have to wait for 4.5 minutes for the phone to finish capturing it. The problem is not waiting, because in some cases, if you wait longer, you'll get a better result. But too much time means the image ends up being brighter than ideal. It won't look good. Like, you have to be in an extremely dark scene to be able to get something out of it. Like being far away from the city on a new moon day would be the ideal situation. But of course, in a moderately lit night scene, you can still use the regular night mode or the Pro mode or the tripod mode to capture the stars. Moving on, the X3 Super Zoom supports 4K and 1080p recording, both at 60 as well as 30 FPS. This is 4K 30, amazing quality, great colors, and excellent stability. This is 1080p 30 FPS clip at this resolution, at this frame rate. You get access to all the cameras. So basically this is shot using the ultra wide angle lens. So let's shift to the main lens. So this is the 64 megapixel camera. So like you're seeing, like it's all possible to do it while recording. You can switch between the lenses while recording the video, and you can even go 2x, but this is digital zoom. This also uses the 64 megapixel camera and digitally zooms in. And then we've got the Periscope lens. So this is 5x optical zoom. This is not digital zoom. From here you can even go 10x up to which it is quite decent. The footage quality seems decent, but beyond that I don't think so. So this is 15x and this is 20, 25 and 30. 30x is the maximum you can go while recording videos. For photos it's 60x, for videos it's 30x. Like I said, at 1080p resolution and 30 FPS, all the cameras are accessible, but apparently at 4K resolution, the Periscope Zoom lens doesn't work. Like going by the quality of this video, I can say that it's just using the main camera. So main camera, 5x digital zoom, that's the reason it looks quite terrible. So here's a side-by-side comparison between the 4K clip and the 1080p clip. So both are at 5x. The reason for the difference, as I said before, is because the 4K clip
is actually from the 64 megapixel main camera. So it's 5x digital zoom, while the 1080p clip you're seeing right now is from the Periscope zoom lens. So that's 5x optical zoom.
One of the unique features on the video front is that it supports HDR video recording. In a regular, evenly lit scene, you won't find any difference, but in challenging scenes like this, when you're against sunlight, or if there is a super bright region and a super dark region in the same frame, you can use the HDR mode to capture the best of both worlds. Here, the blue color of the sky is visible on the HDR video. It looks way more pleasant overall. And in this case, you can notice more of the orange color that's created by the sunset. By the way, the best part is, Realme has not used the fake 960 FPS slow motion mode on this phone. It's real, it looks smooth, and it's pretty good actually. The quality itself is decent, which is quite rare to see at this frame rate. There is also a full HD 480 FPS mode, which looks really good. And then there is a 1080p 120 FPS option as well. One of my favorite features would be the portrait video mode. It works with the rear camera as well as the front camera. Despite me wearing headphones, it still does a decent job of blurring out the background. But of course, the rear camera does a much better job. Footage looks fantastic. Actually, I found this portrait mode feature quite impressive even on the Realme X2. So that's it for this super detailed camera review of the X3 Super Zoom. Let me know if you found it useful. Let me know if you'd like to see any camera comparison involving this phone. I'll try to get it done. So that's it. Thanks for watching. This is Ashwin from Technology Doc, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.